Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining in. We are in a live event, a live webinar on gender and social justice in Puerto Rico. My name is Natalia Bonilla. Welcome to this webinar. I'm here with Ada Alvarez Conde. She is a gender and policy expert in Puerto Rico as well as internationally. Ada, thank you for joining in.
Thank you, Natalia. It's a pleasure to me to be with another Boricua having this webinar.
Yes, today we are going to be talking about what is currently happening on the gender-based violence in Puerto Rico. Most of you that already know that this webinar was being hosted by us knew that we wanted to go beyond the talk about the economy. We wanted to talk about social issues, what's happening to the people of Puerto Rico, specifically women, children, and the elderly. So I want to start this webinar, but before we go, I want to ask you to share this video to all your followers, as well as to comment below all your questions, as well as any topics that you would like to address. We will be having a specific section on the webinar where we will be answering your questions. So to start this webinar, I want to ask you, Ada, please tell us what is currently happening with gender-based violence statistics after Hurricane Maria.
Well, first of all, thanks for joining this webinar. Anybody who's joining or who sees it whatever time, that's a good thing about being live. Basically, with this webinar, there were a series of questions that were posted at the event, and that's what I'm going to answer, starting with the one that Natalia just said about which are the statistics. So technically, the first question is, what is the situation on domestic violence and child abuse in Puerto Rico? So for now, like the latest statistics are 16,000 of child abuse cases that are reported to the police, and around 11,000, again, police reports by the Law 54 or the law related to domestic violence. This is just the reports that get to the police. So the statistics show that it could be a lot more. So definitely the issue of making sure that we get to the authorities and that we report them is a campaign by its own, but the number is big. So the reason we're starting with the statistics is to give you an example of what was the situation before and how it stands, and even after Maria is even bigger, because the hurricane made those services to victims and the police not as accessible, as you know, and definitely anything that's related to the economic crisis is increasing the defunding of these programs and is increasing the violence or the disparities. Another question that we were gonna answer is how poverty affects youth in cases of child abuse. Well, 84% of children live in a zone of extreme poverty, and 58% of all children in Puerto Rico are considered poor. Saying that how poverty affects youth, well, definitely poverty is a thing that we have to talk about youth, because it's related to how our generation is growing up, and how the disparities are beginning to be bigger. So definitely, by talking about youth in cases of child abuse, we're talking about an issue of also neglect, of not having enough to eat, of having parents that are together because they have financial dependence and not independence. More and more people tied up to the circumstances of the island, the lack of jobs or job opportunities. As we know, there was a massive exodus after Maria, and a lot of that exodus was happening before, but this situation just made worse the poverty and the problem of education. As you know, they're closing schools more and more because they say that the population is going down, but the way they're doing it is not exactly the most democratic friendly way. So it is a challenge to go beyond, and this is why this is so important, to go beyond the fact that people see Puerto Ricans or see the people as a sign, a dollar sign, versus a human being, and the social aspect, which is a justice, social justice aspect of the crisis. The lack of policy, governmental actions for women, children, and minorities. Well, definitely in terms of minorities, we are regulated by the United States, and that's important to say it because anything related to migration laws, we cannot do it on our own. However, Puerto Rico was really great at 3 years ago to include on its Law 54, La Ley 54, which is the law that protects domestic violence victims, to include that help, to include that legal source or resource regardless of immigration status. So that's important because it was a local law that made possible helping victims, but the local law made sure that it didn't matter which one was your status as an immigrant to get the protection of the police and to be able to go to the police and do the filing of the case. Anything related to migration, that's another story. And after Trump's administration, they have been evaluating taking out the visa for domestic violence victims as exiles. So again, we have federal regulation that goes over local regulations, but one example, at least on immigration, related to how the Puerto Rican government gave more help to immigrant, in this case, the minorities. Policy and governmental actions. Well, definitely, I guess the biggest challenge is how to get out of the same thing that everybody is repeating, which is the financial crisis and not the social crisis that goes along with it. Because when you have more poverty, you have more disparity. When you have more disparity, you also have that exodus, demographics change. You have a older population. You have a series of unfortunate events coming up together that are making difficult that we have a plan. And today is probably the most horrible day to talk about this webinar and the most great day to talk about it because two things happened today that are really important. First, there was a kid, an 8-year-old kid that was found dead in one of the projects called Region Torres, and he was found dead with 8 years old with 20 pounds. The mother called saying that they found him dead, and then apparently he was in a state of decomposition, like of his body. So he was so small and so tiny and so neglected that this was horrible, and it happened today. And if that wasn't enough, today the judge Swain just said that the fiscal board could override any policy if it's related to money, and kind of said what we already know, but it's been constant on the message that we do not have the final word. So definitely we need to gain back our sense of self-government and how we deal with stuff, but understanding that at the end we don't have the last word. And that's something that has been completely changed after Promesa, and obviously Promesa after the hurricane, and the austerity measures don't mix. And that's an issue of social justice because it's affecting people. Social justice is poverty. Social justice is talking about lack of justice. Social justice is about having opportunities and tying that down. Like social justice with gender is fundamental because usually women are the one that either take care of the people on their family, the caregivers. There's a lot of single mothers. There's a lot of women who are the one in charge in their family economically, and also all the programs related to being in abusive relationships or childhoods are being affected. So definitely it's not about bringing up the topic of social justice, but how we also bring up the topic of gender. And basically two more things we're going to answer is the effects on local media and mental health. I think personally, my 2 cents is we won't be able to sleep well till September 20 of 2018 passes, when we celebrate the anniversary of Maria. Just today, there was a lot of people that went out of that the electricity went down, and there was like a thing that more than 20 municipalities didn't have electricity. And I think that I wouldn't call it PTSD because it has not been called by that by the professionals of mental health. However, definitely we're having signs of post-traumatic stress disorder when there's rain and people are having those plastic ceilings and people are not having access. So a lot of media that is only reflecting bad news is not helping us to talk about this social justice and the gender issues. And to finish, what social justice looks like in Puerto Rico and what can we do about it. We definitely have to have conversations like this. This is a webinar, this is a space to talk so that you can comment, like so you can share it, so you can start the conversation on how we cannot be talking about Puerto Rico without talking about the most important factor, which is their people and the ability of ruling themselves if we have any, and in the process that in the lack of self-government that we have but still have, we have a lack of self-government and we don't have the last word, but we have a lot that we can do. We have to focus on what we can do and not exactly on what we cannot do. So in terms of social justice, there is a need to check out what was happening before and after Maria. And before Maria, there was Promesa. Before Maria, they imposed a fiscal board that we didn't vote for. After Promesa, there's been a lot of austerity measures that are cutting benefits for workers, that are cutting benefits or on health, on education. And if we only talk about paying people we owe and not the conversation of human rights, social justice, and gender, we're not having conversation. So I will say that there's many things that we can talk about and what we can do about it. I will leave this to Natalia, but definitely this is a way to do it. Making the space, getting it out there, and talking about it is the first thing.
Thank you, Ada, for that specific and amazing talk there. It is also important to talk about capitalism. We have been seeing lots of research done by Naomi Klein, which is a very renowned journalist and economist from Canada. She has released a book called The Battle for Paradise, and she's also the author of The Shock Doctrine. And she's one of the few journalists that have been international journalists that have been following the case of Puerto Rico, and she has showcased that in Puerto Rico what we have lived is the shock doctrine for decades. So anybody that has been seeing the shock doctrine as something that happened after the Hurricane Maria, guess what? It is not. The shock doctrine has morphed into the exploitation of trauma, which is another doctrine that she's currently developing, which is the trauma doctrine, because it's tied not to the colonial status of Puerto Rico and the U.S. But one of the things that Ada has addressed is that when austerity measures are taking place, the people are often forgotten, and specifically women and children and the minorities, the community that are minority in the island. So in this case, I want to see we have some questions. We currently have a comment by Aida Mendoza that she's talking about the capitalism disaster is the answer after Maria. But I will want to ask you, Ada, you have lived the hurricane there. Do you think that it is part capitalism, or is it more lack of government availability or
I think a lot has to do with, okay, let's talk about the colonial mindset. And I always like to quote Albert Memmi on this, on how colonialism goes beyond the political status and goes on how much time have you been on a situation where you feel you cannot do something. So I will tie that feeling with Maria. For a long time, the paradigm has been, especially by those who believe in statehood, that, or even those who don't believe in statehood but have liked how we are, that the US is a savior. And the problem with having that is that you always see people saying, "Oh, if it's federal, it must be good. If it comes from the U.S., it must be great," or that sense of whatever everybody else is more than what I am. So what happened with Maria was very interesting, and people are forgetting, and I'm trying to remember them. When Maria happened, the help didn't come immediately. Obviously, there were a series of people that came after pressure or came after a response, military response, etc. But those first days, we had to deal with it on our own, and that was the shaking of people on what is my capacity to do things on my own, and how fast or how slow was the response of those who have been hearing all my life that are the saviors of this place. And it's very interesting because before Maria and before the fiscal control board happened, people wanted the fiscal control board because they trusted something federal more than the Puerto Rican government. But then right now, it completely changed into 8 out of 10 don't like the fiscal board because they've been implementing things that are hurtful for workers or hurtful to the pockets that obviously makes families struggle. And that's to the people that have families, because if you really have to understand too that we cannot assume that people have people around, right? So I've seen walking the streets of Puerto Rico that there are also a lot of people alone, and there are many cases of old people being left alone by their sons and daughters, or because they're dead or they've gone. Children, um, women had an issue finding even milk after Maria. Like there was a social issue, and there is a colonialism mindset that is affecting Puerto Rico more than there is if there's a big political problem of who we are and what power do we have, if any, lately. The problem is that we we have this moment with Maria where we recognize what we can do, but because time has passed, we've been trying to get to the same point or to the same mindset of we need somebody else. So I feel that Maria is really good when we think about the capacity you have to do things on your own. And it's awful to hear people say that it's the best thing that happened because it brings money when there's still people without power. So lately that came out of the media that people were praising Maria because of the funds. Um, and definitely, as I'm seeing on the comments, Boricuas on the island did much more than local or federal government. And obviously, the Puerto Ricans that already had left and those who have left after Maria definitely count.
I want to specifically address this point. You that have you as a gender and policy expert, you have also been working as a dating violence expert, giving conferences in more than 500 schools around the island and beyond. I want to ask you, before and after Hurricane Maria, what was the gender-based violence for women? Like the how was the situation before, and if anything you have seen a change in how the women are treated, and this colonial mindset, as you have expressed, has been taking a toll on their mental and their work related experiences.
Well, the problem is that the statistics, the stats are almost the same so far, like 10, 11,000 a year. However, people are feeling that this is a bigger problem recently because of all the cases in the media of people killing, like partners killing women. There was I did a column on this on the newspaper of three killings, like three. I think the word is kind of like a man killing his partner three on a same week, right? So this was horrible, and it makes people think that is more. and it's just more visible, or it's just like two, one next to the other, right? So technically, the biggest challenge came after Maria because of all the services that stopped. So, for example, shelters, domestic violence shelters were mostly destroyed. The communications obviously were destroyed in general, but when you're in a shelter and you are not, it's like being a refuge inside a refuge. It's like a weird like prison inside the prison, right? Because you were already being refuge by something outside, and then you're taking refuge of something that came on a hurricane and attacked everyone. So that's horrible. Um, but the biggest thing after Maria has been two things: the financial dependence. So I feel that because poverty or austerity have been the things that we're talking more about, the problem is that dependency on money, or staying with an aggressor because of money, or staying, not leaving because of money, is being one of the things that is increasing. The financial violence, or the fact that you can't leave because you don't have how to sustain your family. And also the fact that everything that has happened with gender has been really messed up. Not only because they're cutting funds, but there has been a weird situation where the government has become a bad news producer, right? So we had someone that they submitted for women's advocate office. They took that out because she was in favor of gender perspective education. Then the one that was the soup woman advocate became the woman advocate for some months. There was a mess in the office because no one was properly entitled to be the woman's advocate. It was like the interina, right? Like the one in between, like working it out. And then she denounced a sexual harassment case of the government, of a government official, and she was taken out. So the woman's advocate says something about a case on gender violence that is related to a politician, and she is taken out. And then just a month ago, they submitted a new one, women's advocate, and in like 2 or 3 days, they approved her. And a lot of people of the women advocacy groups didn't know her, or don't know exactly, or haven't seen her as an advocate ever. We hope that she will do good, but in terms of knowing her to fight for women, that's not the case. So I think the biggest issue has been that the financial dependency, the accumulation of mental, emotional situations that you have to endure to also add up any violence on the side. And then like the media kind of saying that this happens a lot and that it even happens on the government. So it's kind of weird to not have a direction and policy that will help this to get better. So definitely there is an attack on women. There is an attack on children. And there is an attack if we make them invisible, which is why this space is important, because we need to talk about this. It's great that we are two women talking at this webinar. There have been multiple panels and forums of Puerto Rico after Maria. I don't know if all of them include women panelists to start, women experts talking about this, and they're not putting the social crisis inside the conversation. They're all talking about recovery, money that is being sent, and what they will build up, and the energy, and the whatever. And this is the moment to invite you to please add up women, because we are as experts as other people on panels and forums about Puerto Rico, in Puerto Rico or anywhere else. Second, you have two great examples here of Puerto Rican women who have talked about social justice and gender, who are doing stuff. And third, if you don't pick us, put the topic on the panels and the forums, because children, women, families, because this affects men too, need to be the spotlight of the recovery. Not there. There's let me put this out. There's a lot of evictions going on. A lot of people will lose their home. While there's another campaign on building homes, what is the use of us wood or concrete home if there's no one living inside it, and if the ones that are inside that home are destructive, are gone wrong, are having violence and having issues. So think about that beyond the box.
And I think another point to address is that when we make these stories visible, because there's been a lot of international media coverage, national media coverage on the human tragedy of after the hurricane. However, we create this cycle, or the news has created this cycle of re-victimization, not really trying to push forward, like you said, putting women experts on panels talking about these issues beyond the problem, but rather focusing on the solutions. So to end this webinar on that note and to address social justice, the diaspora of the Puerto Rican diaspora, as well as many others in the US and internationally, have helped Puerto Rico in many ways. Also, there's many local initiatives of people in Puerto Rico doing amazing work, trying to restore land, restore the communities and the social work. So my question to you, Ada, would be, what else can be done to address social justice in Puerto Rico? What needs to be done now?
What needs to be done to address social justice is, first of all, the need of having a mirror. We need to have some time to evaluate who we are, what we think of ourselves, what they have told us we are before anything. Because I would say, let's save each other, let's work this out. We can do it. We did it on the 21st of September, the day before, the day after Maria. But if you don't think you can, it's hard that you will do something. So the first thing that you will have to say, that you will have to do, is definitely put a mirror on yourself and question, what have they have told me I am? What have I done? How was this experience, and how we're gonna move forward? If you really think everything is messed up, there's no hope, it's hard to unite on working on a project to work together and make this happen. Second, I personally have another. This is not necessarily related to gender, but definitely policy. If I was governor, I would definitely make sure that any money that is sent is invested mostly on Puerto Rican companies and Puerto Rican experts. Another way to say that we're less is that they're always hiring people from other places, and they're bringing people to be here while they're making people that are experts here go out. Or everybody recognizes our human resource or the great work that we do. And just because there's a lot of money coming on, we definitely have to put it on social issues and social reconstruction, not only houses reconstruction, right? Like programs of emotional health. Mental health is really bad, and there's an attack on health. So why would you have this amount of money just to build houses when the mental health is rising and the poverty is rising? So a good distribution of that budget that includes reinvesting on the island and not reinvesting on people who want to buy the island to leave the islanders out. Um, Definitely have to attend the education system, have to attend the security. There has to be something done for people like me who want to raise their family here, but it's becoming, or they're making it feel like it's impossible. So I also think that the diaspora was really effective on being involved, but Puerto Ricans need to be involved. Like, it's horrible to see someone that lives outside more patriotic than someone who lives here. It happens because of memory, like the memories that we have, everything. But we need to build something up together, not diaspora versus the one here, but the ones that are here need to count. And one of the biggest issues I found as a history major is that people don't know their history. So definitely investing on culture and arts and sports and stuff that will make us rebuild the right way And definitely capitalism and the fiscal control board bring the conversation of status up. I don't think it's the only conversation, but I think that for a long time this was a taboo, or it was said, no, it's not important. We need to have conversations of our future. I personally believe in a constitutional assembly as a mechanism, or una asamblea constitucional de estatus. Probably that's the best translation, where everybody writes what they want in Puerto Rico and work that out. And in terms of gender, putting the gender conversation in everything, including the budget, gender perspective budget, on the experts that they hire, on the people, on the agencies, the representation, on projects. Um, we are the majority of the population. We are the majority of voters, but we're not the majority in the legislatures and the political positions and on CEO positions. So that's something that we really have to work out to make this happen.
So I'm checking if we have some questions. I think in our Facebook page. Are there any topics to address? We would like to have you comment. All the viewers of this video, please comment below your ideas, your questions, and topics you'd like to be addressed. Meanwhile, Ada, what is the work that you are doing currently with army of peacemakers, as you have said?
Well, I'm very happy to announce and to tell you 12 years. It has been 12 years doing conferences on dating violence. And this year I started something called the Peace Promoters, or the Army of Peace. Peace Promoters or Peace Volunteers, Brigada de Paz, you can call it as you please. But I feel that this project is new and is important because the purpose is to multiply the effort. So in my case, I've given more than 500 conferences in Puerto Rico and the United States and in other countries like Mexico, Colombia, even in Thailand. But I feel that one of the things that I saw and I keep seeing on people is that they want to help. Maybe they don't know how to, because all the messages that they're hearing is that everything is lost. So I'm training people to give conferences in schools. So in August, I will start I started a campaign, and I'm starting a training. I will have more than 120 volunteers that want to get trained on dating violence to go to schools. And this is the start of something amazing, and it's because we are focusing on empowerment and not re-victimization. We definitely have a lot of power. We definitely have a lot of things to give away and to help and to give our sense of self into a greater cause. If we think we don't, we will never do it. So this is the first step to silencing those voices that think that everything is lost. I have been amazed and happy to see the response of people that want to help. They just need good direction, and they just want leadership. And more than following instructions, they want to discover what they have to offer, because all the power is in you. The problem is that the power system have told you to shut up, especially to women and children. So this is the time to speak up, to bring up the conversation, and to unite on the causes rather than our differences, and to make Puerto Rico rise, which is my biggest desire and wish, that we can unite with anybody. And I thank, and this is a space to thank everybody who came to help Puerto Rico. People from the United States, people from all over the diaspora or others. Thank you for trying to help and encourage us to keep working. And you come visit, and let's keep a conversation to make Puerto Rico put Puerto Rico in the spotlight, not as a bad news topic. As you know, after Maria, it has all been the attention on how bad and messed up we are, what's going on down there. So let's change the conversation and say what our people are doing, what can we do better, and how are we going to get out of this, because we cannot keep repeating that everything is messed up. and it's not gonna change. We don't think it's gonna change. We won't. So this is the moment.
Okay, so Ada, where can we find more information about the work that you're doing and to follow you on social media? What are your handles?
Well, my social media is Ada Alvarez Conde. Ada Alvarez Conde, o en inglés Ada Alvarez Conde. So you can find me on Twitter, on Facebook, and you can check out the information. I have an English portfolio and an English website. So those who need English, the resume of everything I do, I have it in English, and it's adaalvarez.com. So in adaalvarez.com, you'll see like anything related to the portfolio, anything I can help with. And please follow Natalia Bonilla, who is also right now living in the United States and is an expert, not only working on peace and conflict resolutions, but she's also great on her projects as well that are related to social justice and bringing up conversations and bringing out the attention to the international world, right? So international relations is her specialty. And you have two great women you can use. If you don't use it, you're silencing everything I have to offer. So use this video to start a conversation and start like a ripple effect on more women talking of these issues. And we will answer anything you have to say after the video.
Okay, well, thank you so much for tuning in, and this video will be uploaded on YouTube on both of our channels, as well as the Facebook pages of both of us, of Natalia Bonilla and Ada Alvarez Conde. Thank you so much for tuning in. It was nice to have this conversation. Thank you, Ada.
Thank you.